Respecting Labour Rights, Part 2. There are 7 criteria in Principle 6 of the 2018 RSPO P&C, which aim to protect and respect workers' rights and working conditions. In Part 1 of Respecting Labour Rights, we covered criteria 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3. We will now look at criteria 6.4 to 6.7. 6.4. Children are not employed or exploited. There is a clear restriction on RSPO members in allowing children below the minimum legal working age to work. According to the ILO Convention 138, any hazardous work should not be done by those under 18 years of age. Hazardous work means work that is likely to jeopardize a child's physical, mental, or moral health or safety. This includes exposure to hazardous agents, such as chemical substances or radiation. As mentioned earlier, there is a prohibition for RSPO members in allowing children below the minimum legal working age to work. In Indicator 6.4.2, RSPO requires that workers are above the national minimum age or above the company policy minimum age, whichever is higher. In addition, in Indicator 6.4.3, young persons, or those aged 15 or above the minimum age of employment, but below 18 years of age, may be employed, but only for non-hazardous work, and with protective restrictions in place. What does this mean exactly? Here's an example. A company's minimum working age is 16, and the national minimum working age is 15. This means you can employ a 16-year-old, but only for non-hazardous work. You cannot employ a 15-year-old for any kind of work. You cannot employ a 16-year-old or anyone below 18 years for any hazardous work. Farm work on a family farm, which may be the case for some scheme smallholders, is only acceptable when it is for the family's own consumption. Child labour is prohibited not only by employers, but also through employment relationships with third parties. You can learn more about this in the child labour video. 6.5. There is no harassment or abuse in the workplace, and reproductive rights are protected. There should be clear policies, which have been clearly socialized to staff, workers, contract workers, and other stakeholders, and should be publicly available. Take a look at this example. While the adoption of the policies is important, how they are being implemented successfully is equally important, which includes progress monitoring. The policies should include the education of women, empowerment, awareness programs for women, and the functions of a gender committee. This committee, which should include representatives from all areas of work, will consider many matters that are covered in the Respect for Women video. 6.6. No forms of forced or trafficked labour are used. As a large percentage of harvesters are migrant workers, it is crucial that they are legalised and separate employment agreements are drawn up to meet the immigration and international requirements. Companies shall comply with legal requirements, and workers are protected through secure contracts, which entail clear salary provisions, in-kind benefits, and medical coverage and insurance, and to avoid discriminatory practices. Workers should enter into employment voluntarily and freely without the threat of penalty, have the freedom to terminate employment without penalty, given reasonable notice or as per agreement in accordance with ILO conventions, should not have passports or identification documents withheld to restrict their freedom of movement, should not have their contracts substituted without changes meeting the local law or providing equal or better terms in line with the national guidance. In meeting compliance, subcontractors and suppliers are also required to be screened through due diligence to ensure that their practices are in line with the requirements in the RSPO 2018 P&C. Members are also required to adopt and implement a labour policy, which includes statement of the non-discriminatory practices, no contract substitution, post-arrival orientation program to focus especially on language, safety, labour laws, cultural practices, and more. Decent housing to be provided in accordance with national law, or in their absence, ILO Recommendation 115. Fees related to recruitment and hiring of migrant workers. Please refer to the forced labour video for further information. 6.7. The unit of certification ensures that the working environment under its control is safe and without undue risk to health. To comply with this indicator, members need to ensure that appropriate and adequate personal protective equipment is provided to workers to protect them against hazardous work, such as the spraying of pesticides. This also includes safety equipment for machine operators and sanitization and disinfection facilities against harmful substances. In addition, all workers are to be provided with medical care and accident insurance, as some of the roles in the plantation could lead to unforeseen injuries and/or sickness. We hope that these two videos on respecting labour rights have provided you with a good foundation on the rationale behind labour rights and how it can be achieved through compliance with the RSPO standards.